Hi everyone, I'm Tegan. Welcome to today's Makerspace video on simple bookbinding. Today we're making a concertina book and I'll be showing you how to do that. So I've got some beautiful examples of some bookbinding here. These are some Japanese books and this is just a form of bookbinding whereby it's all been die cut and it's all been bound, cloth bound on the back here. And it's similar to a concertina book bound. This here is an old traditional book that I found overseas, and this is a concertina book bound. It has fallen apart a bit, but what happened is, so this is what happens. All your pages are joined together in one single piece of paper. And that's what we'll be doing in today's bookbinding session. So all you need for today's session is some long pieces of paper. You can use one piece of paper, or like I'm doing today is I'm joining a few pieces so that way I've got some extra long pieces. You need some hard pieces of board. These are going to be your backing board, similar to our cover here. We just need that part and that part. And you need some cover paper to cover your board. So I've got some old drawings that I've found, so I'm going to be using them. But you can use wrapping paper, looks beautiful with wrapping paper. I have a craft knife and a ruler for cutting. If you don't have that, you can use scissors if you have a steady hand, that works really great. A glue stick always comes in handy. Some double-sided tape as well. You can use PVA glue, but because PVA glue is a very wet kind of glue, in this case we are binding with paper on paper, so a glue stick works better in this instance. Otherwise, if you were binding a fabric base to a cardboard, then PVA with a mixture of wallpaper paste to dry it out a little bit more, make it a bit more sticky, or fabric glue would work better for those kind of instances if you're wanting that kind of tactics. Alright guys, let's get ready to start. So your first step is to cut your board to the size that you want. This will indicate your long pieces when we fold it to get it to the right size. So you do that by measuring it and making sure that it's all exactly the same right size, so that way it's perfect. Then once you've got that, continue the same measurements across into your long pieces, making sure that they're the same height. It's okay that this is a little bit smaller because then you get a nice framed edge along there as we stick. So if you can see there, it has a little bit of a border. That's okay. Sometimes when we fold this, it can sometimes fold a little bit wonky, and that's usually due to the grain of the paper as it's being pressed and when it's being cut down into, if you've brought it in a sheet of paper, sometimes the paper can move when it's all being cut on the press. So when we go to fold it, it sometimes doesn't fold as great. Or if you're just like me, I'm not great at folding paper. From that, if we've got it like this, we're now going to fold our paper. So we're using this as our template. We don't want to fold it any longer than this because otherwise our paper is going to stick past this, our paper sheets. So with here, you can get a pencil and mark this as your measurements, or you can use a ruler. So I know that my covers are 10 centimeters, so my fold lines must be less than 10 centimeters for each piece. So I've got a long ruler here, so I'm going to just mark out every 10 centimeters where I need to fold. I have here a bone folder. Traditionally these were made out of ivory, but you now can buy them in plastic versions, which are a lot more environmentally friendly. This helps you to fold paper and to be able to get a smooth crease. As you fold your paper, you want to start folding one side, and then you're going to fold back onto the other side. So as you fold back to that 10 centimeter mark, or whatever width you have for your piece of paper. So you can kind of see now here with the whips, we're going back and forth creating a zigzag shape, like an accordion. That's why it's called a concertina fold. So we keep going back and forth as we go along. If you don't have a bone folder, you can use a knife, works really great, kitchen knife, and just use the flat side of it, or you can use a spoon. Spoons work really great as well. Okay, so we can start to see that we're getting this shape. This is going to be my edge that's going to be sticking out of the book. This other side's a little bit more rugged, to say the least. I have one side here that is definitely a lot shorter, and that is the part where I'm going to be tacking on my next page. So to add another layer to this page, I'm going to create a fold, and that's where double-sided tape or glue stick comes in handy. So just get a little piece of tape, run it along the seam, and you just attach it to the rest of the paper like that, and continue on folding as you go along. You can add as much paper as you want. You can even add paper that folds down, add different types of paper, be really flexible around it. The great way of this book is that it's very much for an artist. If you're into drawing, with this type of book, it's also economical in the sense that once you've finished with your paper, you have these ends still ready to go, so you just cut off your paper, reattach a new lot of paper, and you're ready to go again. You're not throwing away a whole book, so it's good from that point of view. So I'm going to continue going on and folding till I'm finished with this, and then we'll work on the next step. As you fold, use the guides, use the bottom of your pages and the top of your pages as the guides to fold according to that as well, so to help you line it up. It'll make the job a lot easier. At the end, your pages may not be 100% lining up perfectly. You may have a little bit of leftover of paper. So what we'll just do is we're just going to slice that bit off. We no longer need it. It's just excess paper. And we'll just make sure before we completely slice it off that it lines up on our cover. And in this case, I'm going to actually cut it a little bit shorter because I don't want it completely sticking out. So using this as my template just to make sure it all sits correctly, and then I will cut according to that. Use your pencil to mark it down as a guide. At this point, after you've finished folding all your book, if you feel like it's gotten a little bit out of hand and it's a little bit too rugged, you can trim the edges. You can trim the top and the bottom to make it line up. You just need to make sure that when you're trimming, you have to hold it really steady, hold down really hard, and just go very patiently cutting until you get right to the very end. Take your time, go really slowly. Otherwise, keep it nice and neat. Sometimes that really rugged edge looks really great as well. Like, it really depends on what you like the look of. Don't stress if it looks not perfect. That's okay. It's a handmade book. It doesn't need to be perfect. So my book's ready. Just remember not to cut this end or this end because they're the folded pages, and if you cut those ends, your page will disintegrate. So now we've got everything folded, so that is ready. We've got to prep our covers. So I've got some images. I'm going to just get this ready to go now. To do this part, work out what part of the image you want to make the hero focus of your cover. So for instance, on this part of the image, I'm interested in the hearts. I kind of like this eye. I do really like this color part here, and I think I actually might go with this color shape here. So I'm using that as my guide. You want to have a border around because we need to fold the paper over and it needs to be tucked in over on this side. So you need to allow at least a centimeter border around. Give yourself even a centimeter and a half. That's plenty of space. You can always cut it down. It's okay. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to allow a centimeter and a half and then rule that out and then cut it down. For anyone who has contacted school books before, this is basically the same process as contacting a kid's school book. So we're going to cut this out now. I have my glue stick. I'm going to cover this side completely with glue. And I'm going to smush this side down. So we're going to be careful not to get any air bubbles in this. So it's always good to have something like a bone folder or a ruler or even a spare piece of card to push those air bubbles out, so that way you get a nice smooth surface. You're aiming for your cover image to end in the middle, and because we're using a glue stick, it's not too bad. If you make a mistake, you can always just peel it back and put it back down again. It's not a deal breaker. So put it down and smooth it out so we got a nice smooth surface there. And smooth it to the corners as well. Because we were quite generous with the glue, it's stuck really nicely and it took really well. If you find that it's peeling back on the corners, add more glue to it again, because we want it to stick really well. At this point now, this is where the school contacting knowledge comes in play. We need to cut the corners so that way we can fold this paper back over the edges. So we want to create folds so it looks nice and neat. To do that, we need to cut these edges all at 45-degree angles. So we want to cut little triangles. We don't want to cut too close right to that end, and we want to be careful that we don't tear the paper. Also, I should have mentioned earlier, the type of paper that works best here is thinner paper. You don't want to use thick card, so anything that's over 100 GSM, because it'll be very hard to fold over these borders. So stuff like wrapping paper is really great. Tissue paper can work, but that's very delicate. Computer paper works good. Just your general normal paper works well. Don't go for anything if you're hard, thick cardstock. Unlike the paper that we've used here for this middle section, that's a thick cardstock, so this is actually about a 220 GSM, but you can go up really thicker to a 600 GSM watercolor paper, depending on what purpose you're using it for. So we're going to cut these corners off here, and then we're ready to go. Bit like wrapping a present with this. Alright, so that is ready to go. So we've cut it like that. Now we're going to glue everything down again, and then we're going to fold everything over. Hold on to those corner pieces that you cut out, because you still might need them in case it doesn't overlap correctly or you've got gaps. So see here, we've got a nice overlap. It's looking good. I've got a slight gap there, but it's okay. That's looking good. Use your fingers as well. Really get in there and press it in. Use a lot of glue in this instance. Don't be scared of the glue stick, and really press it in. On top of that, and so you've got it completely sealed in all round. So your cover should look like that, nice and flat, and then this is looking like that. That is one side of your cover done. We're going to do the other side now. So the other side, I'm going to use another piece of this paper, and we're going to get that going as well. So same purpose, do 1.5 centimeters border, because that worked really well. And I'm just finding some colors that I like. Yeah. Glue down our cover really well, lots of glue. We want to sit that in the middle. Yeah. Make sure it's nice and flat, so get out any spaces. Now we're going to cut our corner pieces out again. So going at the 45-degree angle for each piece. Cutting out little triangles. From holding on to the corner pieces again, just to make sure. So if I didn't get the angles right and I had a gap missing, I could insert that piece in between the two flaps and it just hide that missing piece. Now I'm going to add the glue down. Be really generous with the glue again on the flaps here. And we fold and use our fingers to make sure we get this really well sealed. And there's a bit of pressure. That is done. Might go back in with my bone folder to really push this down, because there we go. And you can go over with a little bit of glue as well, just to really seal down those edges. If you're using paper that's a little bit more stubborn, like this side seems to be today, yeah, don't stress if it's a little bit too, so that's the other side. So that's great. Those are my covers done. Now the last part is just to attach this. So we can do two methods. We can just solid glue stick down, or we could use double-sided tape, whichever way you want to do. Today I'm going to just glue stick it all down, and then that's it. So I'm going to add a lot of glue over everything. And I kind of want it to sit as close to the middle as it possibly can. There we go. And glue stick this down completely. There you have it. That is a concertina book binding, simple book bound. Done. If you wanted to do a little bit extra, you could add a leather wrap around it to hold it together. But that is it. Done. That is your concertina book bound today. Thanks guys, I hope you had enjoyed, and we'll see you next time. Bye.